Hi everyone, my name is Melanie Thorley and I'm the Director of MJT Law. This is Chris D. Santana and welcome to the Lawcast.
First one of 2022. Been a bit of a delay this year. You can probably see we're all working from home again. I think every first of the year has always been at home. I think we had a lockdown last year, and then obviously the year before everyone was everywhere. So it's a bit of a theme there, I think.
It's getting a bit of a thing. We've been working since the 7th, in fact, from home, and there's no end in sight at the moment.
No, indefinitely. I feel very sorry for the small cafes, etc. that must be in the city, because they would be just ghost towns because no one's there.
No one is there. Paul, my husband, is working in the city at the moment, and yeah, it's quiet. Absolutely, it's properly quiet. But we haven't got on the other side of Australia Day yet, so
let's just wait and see. Yeah.
Can you hear that tiny little monster barking?
I absolutely can. What's he barking at? Is it a piece of leaf or is it a...
Yeah, he's just barking at the fence again. Come on, Seymour, what are you doing? He's just looking at me now as if I'm an idiot, which of course I am because he doesn't understand a word I'm saying. When Seymour finally comes back, I will introduce him to everybody. But we have, as you guys know, we've got a number of animals in the office, and today I'm working from home. Eva's out on her walk with Mad Dogs. I'm going to give a shout out to Mad Dogs and Englishmen. They are bloody brilliant. They've been walking eBay now for months and months, and they've done it without a hiccup, without any issues, and total shout out to them.
No, they're doing a fantastic job, I reckon. Now you've got a real equal cat versus dog kind of ratio for your battles. You know, 2 dogs, 2 cats, roughly about the same size.
I better get this little monster. Just a moment, peoples.
Go for it. There she is.
Hey everyone, this is Seymour. Seymour is still a puppy and is barking at shadows at the moment. So we're working on that.
Working on the barking problem.
Working on the barking at shadows. He is not a big barker. Dude, there's nothing there. Look at him, he's so naughty. Oh my God, you're so naughty, and you're hijacking our podcast. Off you go. No more barking.
He must just have a lot to say about employment law. He's really vocal and passionate about the recent changes.
I thought so. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was employment law myths.
Well, there's plenty of them, isn't there? And we hear them all the time, and we often shake our heads and think, who is saying this? Where's this coming from?
And I kind of feel it's like those weird myths about police, like the policemen can't arrest you if they're not wearing their hat, and things like the ones that were going around.
They must get that all the very time. You know, some old-timey English law that they think still applies. I mean, we've heard plenty of, the Constitution doesn't apply to me because I'm a sovereign citizen. But yeah, I mean, employment myths are everywhere, and almost everything as well.
They are. The first one I've got on the list is you can't terminate someone while on sick leave.
Yeah, just not true. I mean, we know that you can't terminate someone because they are sick.
That's right.
Provided it's not a lengthy or it's not temporary.
Yeah. We're not fitting into this concept of frustration of contract. So we're talking about just someone being on sick leave, usual stock standard. I've got a cough.
Yeah, but the myth really comes from this thought, and I for the life of me can't understand where it's come from. But this thought that basically it's almost a stop moment, like it's almost a shield that can't be penetrated.
Yes.
And it's almost for an indefinite amount of time. You know, this they could just be sick for forever. And what happens to their employment?
Yeah. So that is definitely a myth, people. There are ways to terminate someone who is on sick leave. It does depend on what's happening and what they do. I'm going to use a really interesting example. This person is on sick leave, but they have decided they're going to download the entire database to their personal computer at the same time. Why can't you fire them for that?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
let's use some kind of serious allegations. And what if they steal from you?
yeah. What if
You know,
they
are you
to
expected
the
to just let
office?
that go on?
Yeah. What if you realise while they're on sick leave that they're on video stealing?
Mm.
Why can't you fire them for thieving from you? I just there just seems to be this this concept, but yeah. So there are lots of scenarios I can think of that
I mean,
you can terminate someone while
I
they're
would
on sick leave.
caveat it by saying you can certainly fire them while they're on sick leave, but I think there is room within the legislation and the case law which suggests that you need to take potentially a lighter touch and give
Yeah.
a
I'm,
little bit more of
I'm not,
a
yeah, I'm not suggesting that you go full out, knee-jerk reactions
mm,
all round, but there are circumstances where employers should be able to go through a proper process to terminate someone, whether or not they're on sick leave.
yeah.
And yeah, so that's a myth I think should be busted.
But
There are circumstances where you shouldn't be firing them, of course, but you can absolutely fire people while they're on sick leave.
But I'm going to extend this to another kind of myth, and this one comes up all the time, which is very similar, which is when one employee is being disciplined for a particular thing and potentially terminated, and then the million different other allegations about other employees come, and it's almost some of which may apply to them, some of which may not, and it's almost like they do it as a way of exonerating themselves because you need to deal with all these other issues before you even come to me. And it's just not true. I mean, it's not to say that these other allegations might not be true, and they may very well be, and they may also get investigated and lead to terminations, but it doesn't, just because other people are doing
Doesn't
something wrong.
deal with the core issue of why that person is being disciplined. Yeah, I agree. There's this concept where if I throw stones while I live in a glass house, I'm going to be okay.
And certainly
And
something that I discussed this week was I really have a problem when you have an employee, especially one who might be middle management or management of some description, who is essentially banking allegations as almost as a shield,
getting ready as a shield. You can't attack me because I've got all these other things I want you to think about.
which they might be quite old. When I say old, they might be 6 months old, and they are maybe serious and they may have all the proof in the world. But I take a really big issue when they haven't brought it up to date. And from an employer standpoint, if you don't know that something is going on, you can't do anything to address it. And I think it's a really big delegation. So moving
Yeah.
away from someone's kind of duties as an employee where there is issues, and to just almost in spite of the employer, to keep them to yourselves,
Yeah.
such that you can never be touched because you can just start flinging mud at others.
Yeah.
Rather than dealing with the issue, because now that the company could be liable for whatever's going on, and they had no idea about it. I mean, I have a really big issue with that, and certainly I think people have this idea that if I just have enough allegations, if I make enough dirt on the employer, I'm untouchable, which it's just not true. It's just simply not true.
Okay, well, the next one I've got is you can't take sick leave while on annual leave.
You can't take sick leave while on annual leave. Can you just explore it a bit more? What do you mean?
I'm on a trip in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a really great time, whoop, 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 and I jump on a motor scooter. I have a bad accident, like apparently a crazy number of Australians do.
Yep.
And I'm in hospital. I've got a broken leg. I've got some lacerations. I've got a few stitches. I want to take sick leave.
And
Stay safe.
And the myth being that
You can't. You're on annual leave already. Take your leave. That's what you've got.
yeah, you can see that doesn't really stack up to what is written in the legislation. It's simply whether you're not fit for work.
That's right.
And they're not.
Right.
They're not.
They're not. That's right, because there is this concept where you can withdraw your approval in reasonable circumstances from annual leave. You can get that person back from Bali if under
if
the
it's
right
reasonable in the right circumstances.
So if they're not fit for work, people, they can take sick leave.
Yeah, it's
I actually don't like it though. I know it sounds, maybe it's the employer in me, but I just think you're on holiday. You're on holiday. Like I recently, I had an accident, and I had an accident on the first day back of work, and but I could have easily had that accident while I was, over Christmas time, and I'm going to be out of action for a little while longer. Yeah, I don't see, if you're already, from an
it,
employer's perspective, I can see why employers want to go, but hang on, I'm already paying you to be off work. Why are you now taking sick leave? But no, you can take sick leave. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not
the,
unlawful.
the obvious benefit to the employee is that they are going away from an entitlement that they may not get paid for at the end of their
That's right.
term,
That's right.
at the end of their employment. But one of the things that I've always said, and this is not so much as a lawyer as it is just a general worker, is the idea that you use your sick leave at all costs. I find
Yeah.
I find to be short-sighted. And what I mean is there is plenty of times, you only get 10, most of us only get 10 days a year. And there's going to be times when you're sick, especially now with COVID. But even beforehand, it doesn't take much, just 2 weeks a year. For example, I need my hands to work. It's common for you to break an arm, and an arm is 8 weeks. And you really need that. The amount of time you get, I think, is very close to the amount of time you actually need.
Yeah. You
So
should
you shouldn't
definitely.
waste it
No,
unless.
people take sick leave. People take sickies and bender
Mm,
days and this and that. I think yes, that is definitely taking the piss. But yes, yep, nothing wrong with taking sick leave. Swapping out that sick leave for annual leave to sick leave, and banking that annual leave back in there. Okay, the next one I've got is restraints of trade never work.
the classic, they're not worth
They're
the
not worth the
paper
paper
they're written on.
they're on.
Well, it's somewhat true, somewhat not, isn't it? It really depends.
I think a well-drafted restraint of trade under the right circumstances will be successful.
Yeah, yeah, for the
And
right employee,
yeah, the
it's
problem
absolutely.
is if people use restraints of trade as if it's a stock standard clause that they can put into everybody's contract, and that's the problem with them. You
Yeah,
can't use them like that.
the
They are
scattergun approach.
That's
Just
right. They are about specific circumstances. And for those out there who know me, one of the first questions I ask when people ask me if I can draft from a restraint of trade is, what do they want to protect? And what is the job description with which they think is going to be exposing them? So I can draft a clause that makes sense for the specific circumstance with which they're trying to protect, not some kind of catch-all term that's going to make no sense at all for everybody. So yeah, restraints of trade work, guys. You just got to get it right.
yeah, you just for the right employee. I mean, and for a lot of people, I think it captures more people than what it's given credit for.
Yeah, you don't have
Especially in the
to
professional services.
yeah, you don't have to capture my PA. She doesn't need to be restrained from working for a PA at another law firm. It's not
Mm.
about that. Yeah, look, I think
Well, a
really,
lot of it's reflective of our society and our business society. And what I mean by is, for most small businesses, small and medium businesses, it means your employees are going to be exposed to confidential information and very confidential, and your know-how and so the way you practice, etc. Whereas in a larger organization, you may not have so much exposure, but because most people work for small and medium enterprise, it captures an awful lot of people. And you're right, it's not going to cover the receptionist, but your salespeople definitely. Definitely your operations people, things like that. Absolutely. And
I agree. If you get the right restraint, it's going to work. And there are lots of ways to make the restraint, even if it's poorly drafted, work as well. So it's not just about they never ever work because they're badly drafted, although lots of them are. There are workarounds as well. They're expensive, but there are workarounds.
but what do you say to the the classic line of, well, it's not fair. Why I've left the organization, why am I almost indebted to them, especially for a lot of people when they leave on not so great terms, which is often when the restraint becomes an issue. It's one to another. They really feel almost hard done by.
Look, I think it's wrong to restrain a person for working in the same industry, broadly speaking. It does depend on what they're doing. Like if they're a salesman and they're working in the same industry, it is very difficult to stop them from impinging on your wealth, your ability to make money. But look, I know I am simplifying the salesman job here, but salesmen sell. They sell whatever's in front of them. So that they can sell this, they can sell that. So you might be able to restrain a salesman from selling this particular product. You can't stop a lawyer from going and working as a lawyer somewhere else. I don't think that's reasonable.
Because they can't do very much else.
Yeah, and I also don't think it's reasonable to go, well, you can work somewhere else, but you can't work in this state or you can't work in this city because that's where they live. So I think that's unreasonable, but I do not think it's unreasonable to say you are restrained from contacting the clients. You're restrained from pulling away employees of that company. And it happens all the time as a lawyer. You run a team. You like your team. You leave. You want your entire team to go with you, and you want to take your clients with you. Not necessarily the right way to do about it, but so there's nothing wrong with it. I just think how long, and like I do this restraint to trade stuff all the time, and one of the things that we need to consider when it comes to the length of time with which someone is indebted to this other company is the relationship. What are you trying to protect? If it's your clients, then how long will it take for that client to forget that person works there, work with someone new, and be a superstar still? And then when that person comes back and says, hey, look, I'm starting at this other firm, they're going to go, yeah, so great for you, So there is a break in relationship or a period of time to break. So I think that's what employees need to think about. Why are they hurting that employer? And are they hurting that employer? Because remember, the loss is also something that needs to be considered for restraints. My PA going and working for someone else, the only thing I've lost is an excellent PA. So Phoebe, if you're out there, don't leave anytime soon. All I've lost is an excellent PA. I haven't lost clients, haven't lost, kudos. There's nothing I've lost. People move. People aren't going to think because Phoebe left that I'm a terrible employer. But what are they going to do next is the thing that you need to think about.
Oh, certainly. I think one, and this is almost another myth in and of itself, is how close your clients are actually to the individuals as they are to your company. I think people over exaggerate, oh, he's left, everyone's going to go with him. No, there is a certain level of loyalty to the company as a whole. Sure, they may have some damage to it, but for the most part, they are loyal to the company rather than to the individuals involved. And they may very well forget about them in a matter of weeks. Completely.
So restraint to trade can work. Restraint to trades don't never work. It's a total myth, people. The next one I've got on my list is you don't need to pay independent contractors superannuation.
Yeah, no, and
it
comes up all the time.
It does.
It's a simple look on the ATO website, and you can see that it's not. It's not true.
And we're not tax lawyers, so we can't go into this in any great depth. But it is important to note that if the contractor is basically performing their services to you, and that is the only thing they're really doing, then yes, it is more likely than not you're going to need to pay that contractor superannuation. It is very hard to avoid that responsibility. I don't really have much more to say on that, but certainly I would be advising all people out there who have contractors to revisit their point of view on that particular point.
Isn't it sad though that so many underpayments relate to super? I mean, putting aside and it's been discussed on this podcast about my personal views about superannuation, but because you're also losing out on a springboard effect. The potential for it to become more money. And
I'm
it
not
ends
an
up becoming
expert on
your
these things,
responsibility.
obviously, but I think that the ATO do take into consideration when they give a penalty or when they give a fine, they take into consideration the interest lost. So I think there is something there, but you're right. You're absolutely right. There's no. If you can't afford to pay super, you've got problems.
Can't afford the employee or the
No.
contractor or whatever it might be.
Yeah, this is not a sustainable business model. Yeah, it's pretty tough. This one I actually really like. You must give 3 written warnings before termination. I really like this one because it sounds really sensible. But it's a complete myth.
It doesn't stack up to reality as well. Let's go back to what some of those examples are given for. What if someone just punches someone on site? You know, what if, and is it 3 warnings for the same conduct?
Seymour, what are you barking at now? It's really the perils of working from home. I have in my hand, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's a rabbit's foot.
You've started your witch's cauldron. You've got, rabbit's foot, hair of a 50-year-old man. There's all sorts of weird stuff in there.
That's right, but the dog loves them. Yeah, these 3 written warnings, and you're absolutely right. What if they do something so appalling that they just need to be terminated?
Yeah, you're limiting yourself to it. But what about, are they bound by it?
Are they bound if they write in the policy that they're going to give 3 written warnings, that sort of thing?
I'll give 2. So let's say it's in a policy that says this is how they're going to deal with misconduct, and it says, you'll first get 3 warnings. Let's just say it's for any misconduct, not just for the same one.
Yeah.
Are they bound to it?
I'm going to say largely you need to at least consider the policy before straying from it. I really do. I think if you're going to write in a policy that you need to provide 3 written warnings, that's the expectation that the employee has. I don't necessarily think it's a hard and fast rule and it's set in stone, but yeah, I think you definitely need to stop and think about what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I don't like it though. This goes back like almost 15, 16 years.
This used to be like a work choices thing, or like where did this come from?
This came back in the IR. Well, it's been around, for eons, but it was deleted or dealt with in the Fair Work Act in 2009.
It's just not. It's not necessary. Warnings are not necessary.
No, and they were never written in, as far as I know, into the awards. So it was literally abolished, but it remains as some kind of myth that you need to do it. So employers who don't have a warning process, policy on how they deal with misconduct, don't need to give 3 written warnings. They just need to go through the process with which you would expect someone to go through, which is give the employee a chance to respond to whatever thing is going to cause them to be unemployed, if that's what's going on. Give them a chance to pick up their game, give them a chance to do these things. But they're not written warnings. That's just about notifying them of what's happening and what the ramifications are if they don't do the thing you want them to do. So yeah, I actually, it is one of my favorites. It's one, and then one of my other favorites is coming later. But yeah, so people out there, unless you've got a policy that specifically provides for it, you don't actually have to do that.
Nah, but that's not to say though that warnings don't have a place in employment.
I absolutely think they do, but this concept that you have to do it. I get the phone call all the time. They haven't given me my 3 warnings. I'm like, okay. What's the policy say? Oh, they don't have a policy on it, therefore they have to do it. I'm like,
just as a kind of practical point, 3 seems a lot as well. Like even if we were bound by that, or that was some sort of, it was grounded with something, 3 seems an awful lot, because I assume you're firing them on the 4th
Yeah,
misconduct, which is an awful lot.
we had to do sort of first a verbal warning and then 2 written. So it's kind of how it worked way back when. So like after the second written warning, which is after the 3rd warning, because the first one was verbal, you can terminate. So you're on thin ground. Yeah,
I'm not sure I'd be comfortable having a employee working for me who's done 3 things in the last 6 months, which probably could have been fired for. That's an awful lot.
It is an awful lot. Okay, modern awards don't apply if you have a contract.
No. In fact, if anything, they're equally as important.
That is widely held, though, that view.
That it extinguishes it.
Yeah.
Well, we need to remember that awards are a minimum standard. Sure, that's what the contract is for. It's to bolster rather than to replace.
Back up.
Because the awards don't cover everything, obviously.
No.
But
if you fall under an award and you have an employment contract, both of them will apply.
Absolutely. And if you don't like the award, think about an enterprise agreement.
That's right. And look, there are circumstances where if you fall under an award and you're earning over a certain amount of money, you can have an agreement with your employer to be award free, but that's an additional agreement past your employment contract. So yes, people, awards will always apply in almost every single circumstance. And this goes to this goes to my next one. The award doesn't apply if you're paying over award rate.
Oh, so rather than it puts aside the entitlements and things like that, but you're actually still getting paid for.
That's right. So people see awards. I think and this myth is about people seeing awards as purely a money-based exercise. The award says they're meant to be earning. I'm going to make round figures here, people. They're meant to be earning $1,000 a week based on the work they're doing, with all the penalties and the meal allowances, etc., that apply. But in fact, they're getting paid $1,500 a week. Therefore, the entire award doesn't apply. I love it. I like this myth because it's just so stupid.
I think it's the misunderstanding kind of comes from 2 things. One, that the award is only about money. Like if you look at any award, money is a small section of it. Like a large section, actually majority of it is around conditions rather than remuneration. But I think it also comes to a confusion around that awards don't apply to anyone of management.
Yeah.
If you manage someone, you're out.
If you're a manager, you're award free. Or I really like these myths about the awards. There just seems to be so many that float around about who is and who isn't falls under an award. But I do like these ones where if you pay over the odds, the award doesn't apply.
Out. Yeah.
And I really like this one because it's so not true in so many ways. Even if you are paying over the odds, just by the fact that you're paying a salary does not mean that this person isn't also entitled to some of the other things that are monetary compensation in the award, unless you have a contract that expressly states that this extra money is in lieu of all these other benefits which you would be entitled to under the award. This is so much more complicated than what people are giving it credit for.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, awards are messy at the best of times. But yeah, certainly be cautious. And so many of the misunderstandings, and it can be really dangerous for an employer or really risky because of, I mean, there's so much in those awards that if you're just ignoring it or just displace it to later come up as an issue, because they're massive, a lot of them.
Yeah. And I always tell my clients or prospective clients, reading awards is like landing a space shuttle into the Hudson River. You really need to take your time. Stop and look at the whole document. Don't take one word, one sentence, one tiny subclause. You've got to look at it as a whole document and really think about what it's trying to achieve here. Awards are complicated. Just by paying more money than what is necessarily owed under an award is not going to get you award free. It's just not going to get you over that line. But I do like that one a lot. I got another one. You're not allowed to have bad references.
You're not allowed to give bad references. You
Yeah.
have to scream praises, even if they were
I
a
know.
terrible employee.
So can't give a bad reference.
Can't give bad
I
reference.
like it. I like it a lot. Every employee gets a get out of jail free card when they leave, even if they throw a tantrum on their way out.
Tell you what, it really there's a reason why references are kept very brief. The questions you get asked are like extremely factual. You know, did they work for you? Did they work for this amount of time? Did they do this job? And it doesn't go much further than that. Because if everyone's getting the praises, then it just diminishes the whole exercise. But
Yeah.
I mean, there are circumstances when you can't. Obviously, if there's some sort of confidential nature to the ending of their employment.
Yeah, or you're not being honest. You're just
Yeah,
pissing,
lying.
you know, and there's a sort of and I'm using the word in the loosest term possible, you know, some sort of defamatory element to it, because all the person's done is leave their job.
Mm.
You know, there's nothing else that's happened there. Yeah, I get asked more often than not, would I rehire that person?
That's a very interesting question.
It's a very interesting question.
Because, you know, if they've resigned, you know, they did it for their own reasons. But if they came back to you tomorrow, would you take them back? It's actually a really good question, though, I think.
Yeah, and I have taken people back.
Mm.
Phoebe resigned a little while ago to explore some different options in relation to her degree, and she's back. Nera did the same thing twice. You know, people come back. Yeah, so I get asked that a lot. Would you rehire them? And I think it's a really interesting question, because you can just go no.
No, and that says an awful lot, because what you're saying is now having gone through their entire employment and now getting to know them a bit more, I may not have hired them in the first place.
Yeah, knowing what I know now, or knowing what they've become, it's not interesting. I wouldn't take them back. Yeah, so look, people out there, as long as you're not treating them in a discriminatory, I mean, I'm talking about illegalities here. There's no reason why you cannot be honest in a review.
Yeah.
In a reference. I wouldn't go to town, but I would certainly, you know, there's no reason you can't be honest. And to be honest, everybody has flaws. So if you give a review that is only shining reference, you're starting to wonder what the truth is. Because what you want to hear is something that they can't do. What is it that no one's perfect? So what's the imperfection here?
Yeah, why are they not there, for example? But
or they're just more than that. Like, for instance, it might be that they were brilliant on the telephone. They were absolutely brilliant at getting stuff done, but their word skills weren't really very good. You know, it might just be something innocuous. It could be that, you know, they've never worked on a computer system, like a practice management system before. So there might be some downtime in their, you know, there's an information
inexperience. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, what you need is an honest answer. You know.
Yeah, and
they always turned out to work on time, but only just, and it kind of bothered me. You know. So no, I don't see any reason why you can't give a bad reference, as long as you're not getting up to mischief in that reference.
Yeah, you're not breaching a confidentiality agreement, or you're sort of defaming them, or it's just not true. It's just nasty.
Now, the last but least, extending probationary periods. Oh no, so the second to last, extending probationary periods.
Well, let's talk about the bigger myth that's there, which is probationary periods. It's just full stop. You know, we know that, sure, you can't bring an unfair dismissal application. So, for certain circumstances, 6 months, some 12. But there is plenty of other reasons why people get fired. It's not this idea they can be fired for any reason, because if it's discriminatory, if it's for breaches of general protections, probationary period is completely useless.
So what would be the benefit of extending a probationary period then?
I think probationary periods, full stop, are just a way of putting an employee on notice that they're getting reviewed.
Yes.
And that they need to pick their game up. But when I keep their game good. But my issue with having them, and this is a more management thing than anything, is you're almost encouraging them to slack off after the probationary period. You know, that we expect this as your performance, but then now that you're actually more experienced, you're more productive, because everyone knows there is a certain, delay in productivity when you get a new employee. But then after 6 months, we're kind of implying that the person can't slack off because they're out of their probationary period. If we're really sticking firm to it, I don't like the optics of what you're giving off.
Yeah, look, it's weird, isn't it? Because probationary periods in the contract normally state, during your probationary period, your employer may terminate for any reason. Actually, that's not true. We know that's not true. You can't terminate for a discriminatory reason, for a general protections reason. There may not be available to them unfair dismissal, but there could be breach of contract. It's not, that doesn't exist it's a legal anomaly. We also know about probably 7 years ago, probationary periods were removed from all the awards. So you won't find them in awards anymore. And I would certainly, I'm not going to say that I've read every single award, because there's like 180 of them, and not every award comes across my desk. Like the Helicopter Pilots Award is not one I've actually really looked at in any great detail, or the Ginning Award is another one I haven't looked at in any detail. But certainly it's my experience that they've been taken out of awards. So they really are just a legal anomaly that people like to put in. What they're really saying is, we're keeping an eye on you. You're right. But can you extend it then? Can you say to somebody, your probation in your employment contract, let's look at it from a contractual position. Is it lawful for an employer to say into your contract, you have a probationary period of 6 months, and then at week 5 months and 3 weeks, you're told, oh, look, we're going to extend it a further 3 months.
Does the contract allow for an extension? Does it say, can be extended, as reasonably required or something like that?
That's the problem, isn't it? Like, if we're talking about now, it's actually just a contractual thing. We're letting them know that we're just keeping a close eye on them. If the probationary period is contractually 6 months, is it lawful? Is it okay to extend it?
I think provided there isn't that ability, I think it would be a breach.
I think there's going to be trouble. Yeah.
I don't think it'd be a material breach, but
I think there's going to be problems, because the employee is going to say, but hang on, I relied on this contract and I was relying on it and I was performing it. So now you don't want to perform that particular clause. You want to change it. Yeah.
What's going on here? Are we are the obligations flowing both ways?
So yeah, I think there's going to be some problems. I think it's probably, if you're the sort of organisation that does extend probationary periods, then you need to have a clause in the contract that provides for it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the sensible way forward.
But the danger with extending it is if you have forgotten about the actual legislative part of what a probationary period is. And what I mean by that is that it's actually just to stop unfair dismissals after, let's just say it's 6 months for this particular example. Is if you extend it and then you seek to rely on it, thinking that it still remains, as in you can terminate for any reason, and you're now into, let's say, month 8, you're going to have issues that you're going to fall into, especially if you are firing them for a reason that isn't really valid.
This is exactly right. There's fascinating, isn't it? Now I'm going to move away from these myths, because I think we've
there's plenty more, but we'll keep that for another day.
I was watching this BBC series called War of the Worlds. Yes. It's a 3-part series, so it's not the one that we all know about. Oh, maybe the SBS one, I think, where it's this 3-season malarkey. This is 3 episodes, all an hour long, and I watched them. I think I watched it on ABC, iView, whatever. Yeah, whatever. And it was set back when War of the Worlds was actually written by Orson Welles. That was set back in time.
And it's in the 30s or the 40s or something.
No, it's set in Victorian age.
Oh, right.
So looking at the turn of the century. Sorry, not the century, the last century. So
which is strangely still called turn of the century, but
122 years ago. And it was it was set in such a way, and I really like this. I'm gonna make a point in a moment. It was set up to what happened next, because if we know War of the Worlds and you've listened to the Orson Welles, then we know it didn't take long for those pesky Martians to all die out because of the bacteria that everywhere. And this was leaning on the fact that when the Martians were sucking the blood out of people, which is what Orson Welles was, alluding to when they were saying they were eating us, that they were catching typhoid.
Right, very old. Oh, I'm sure it's still around somewhere, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one that you can vaccinate against now, obviously. And I really like this concept where it's set after typhoid killed all the aliens off, but the Earth was still covered in this weird alien red growth. And if you remember in Orson Welles, they covered the Earth and made the sky red because of it, with this red stuff to make it look like Mars, because back then we thought Mars was red, and we know it basically is, but let's set aside our
we know it's more of an orange, like not too dissimilar to our desert.
Yeah, so we've got a few amount of people left who may or may not have typhoid, and the aliens are all dead. And this is just this sort of like zombie apocalypse type situation where this red stuff is causing the people for the water source to be poisoned, so people are no longer being able to have children, and the food source is also disappearing because you can't grow in Earth that's had this red stuff growing in it. And the story is actually a bit more macabre than that. You could grow over gravestones of those people who have had typhoid. So the concept was their bodies would disintegrate into the earth, and typhoid would be inside the earth, and the stuff would go on it. And I just think this is kind of sort of this post-apocalyptic kind of Martians come to Earth sort of situation. I'm just thinking about how if they had eradicated typhoid in this story, the aliens would have survived.
And they would have, killed everyone.
Yeah, I really like this kind of post kind of story, and I like the concept where vaccinations back then, now they were looking at how to vaccinate or how to culture this typhoid and stuff like that. I just kind of like this concept where we look at it from the aftermath. It's a little bit like is it Roberts who wrote a book about what would happen if the Nazis had won the war.
Yeah, there's actually a TV series, I can't remember about it, where it takes this assumption that they win, the Axis powers win, and it's set, I can't remember the name, but it's set in America post-war, where it's basically been split down the middle, Texas almost being the boundary, and Germany's on, I believe, the East Coast, and Japan is on the West Coast.
Right.
And there's like growing tension between the two about those two fighting, and then there's kind of a American kind of underground type of movement to try and overthrow both of them. It's quite fascinating.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, I like these kind of stories of what happens next, because we all know, I mean, Orson Welles is they all thought it was true at the time. It freaked everyone out, which I think is really hilarious, but it did.
You watch plenty of kind of apocalypse movies, one of your absolute faves. Having done all that and watched everything you've seen and read whatever, if you were to point to one thing that would the most likely to be, an apocalyptic event, what would it be?
I like these illnesses. I think, obviously zombies are going to have, there's a logistical problem there of, zombies don't exist. Aliens coming to Earth, a meteoroid hitting the Earth and creating an extinction level event. There are a few that I watch that are about the rapture, which are interesting. So if you are, the belief in the higher power where
Mm.
God comes back, takes all the goodies and leaves all the baddies.
Mm.
I'm simplifying it because the rapture is not.
We're not going to be talking about
I'm not
Genesis
getting
or
into a
whatever,
philosophical
Genesis
debate
book
about.
5 or whatever it is.
I'm not getting into a philosophical debate about religion, but yes, there's an awful lot I watch about the rapture. I actually also like these ones where we are our own destruction.
As in we all just bomb each other to hell.
No, we create such a poisonous earth that it's actually not sustainable anymore. This kind of green kind of concept that ecologically we do something that tips the balance against us, and it just keeps going. So at the moment, there's a lot of people out there who will say that we're on a precipice and, it could go either way and we don't want to tip the balance, so we all fall off and that's the end of us. But a lot of these apocalypse movies are about tipping the balance, and it just happens really fast. Like you've got a ball bearing and whatever, off it goes.
Which is strange because that
within
doesn't really make a lot of logical
the
sense.
Ice Age and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I actually really like those ones, and I don't know how true they are, but that one is also one I think is probably, if I'm going to be a doomsday prepper, I might prep for something like that.
I mean, isn't it naive of us as humans though to think that we're going to be the maker of our own doom? Like that we are so powerful that we can destroy ourselves. And what I mean is, Earth's had what, I think it's 5 mass extinction events, and none of them we would have had any ability to stop. They would have been completely out of our hands.
The concept that the dinosaurs were killed by a meteorite that caused them.
Or when the subterranean crust or whatever blew and all the volcanoes went off and there was a massive ash cloud and killed everything. I mean, we had no ability to stop that.
We don't have any ability to stop that. Yeah, I guess you're
right.
right.
It's naive of us. It's kind of almost egotistical of us to think that we are so powerful that we can destroy the Earth.
Still, with COVID, we've done a very good job of wiping out quite a number of people on this planet just by moving around.
My hot take on apocalypses are that I agree that it'll probably be a disease or we destroy the Earth or something, but I don't think it will be extinct. I think we have the ability to plateau our population.
Right. So you're saying that although we will wipe out most likely an awful lot of us, humans will survive.
Yeah.
At some level.
Because I think fundamentally our thing that makes us different to most animals is our ability to survive as a human race and to do what's necessary in order to survive. But I think we could definitely plateau it. I mean, that might be horrific, but
there's which is it? The one with Dennis Quaid in it, where they where that kid that plays Spider-Man is stuck in the New York library with a bunch of other people.
Day after tomorrow. Yeah, the day after tomorrow is when they're in the New York library, and it's like snowing and then it's flooding or something.
Yeah, hopefully our viewers will know the one that I'm talking about. Dennis Quaid says something really interesting to his team that are walking from Washington, I think, to New York. When he's asked whether they'll survive this, he says, well, we survived the last ice age. We certainly have the ability to survive this one. And I think that's what you're saying, right? We're actually quite a lot of ingenuity. We might be able just to get through it because we're not so dumb that we will just go, oh, well, let's just stand out in the rain and get killed, sort of thing. Yeah, I like it. I like it. So yes, anyway, so I'm going to plug that show. I'm going to plug it as a really fun thing to do, what happens next. And I like it because it's this concept where typhoid, which is now eradicated, was the thing that saved them all. I love it. Now, obviously, I think typhoid should be eradicated. I am a big fan of vaccinations, but I just like this concept where it was the thing that didn't, that survived. I've got one last thing as a segue from
being go for it.
One last thing, people. Employees sick with COVID. Long service. Do they take sick leave? Is it an?
Think really quickly, if they're sick, like if they've got COVID, it's sick leave. If they are just isolating because they're a close contact and they're not caring for everyone who happens to also be in the same household, which is pretty likely because that's probably how they got it and why they're a close contact, then it'd be annual leave if they've got any,
Or unpaid.
or unpaid leave. But I think chances are they're probably going to say that they're caring for the people of their household. So
Sick leave. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it's a responsibility of the employer to pay. That's not an accrued leave. The interesting question is, can you use your long service leave? I think the short answer is no, you can't. No. There's no way, certainly here in Queensland, to cash out long service leave without going to the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission and asking them for permission to do that.
I mean, because you can't. There isn't that ability.
Maybe. I mean, I know New South Wales changed legislation specifically to allow people to use their long service leave if they got sick with COVID. But this goes back to this kind of fundamental question of why are you taking the leave and what is long service leave designed to do? And there's lots of things about doing it at the last minute and all this sort of stuff. So I guess what I'm going to do is leave with a word of warning for all those people out there who've accumulated long service leave and all those employers out there who know that they've got accumulated long service leave for their employees. Really stop to think about it before you start letting long service leave get used. Yeah. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying it's not as simple as using your annual leave.
And that's a hot take, and I think that wraps it up for this week.
It does wrap it up. Everyone. I had actually a really fun time talking about these myths today. Welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year, and we're fast coming up to Chinese New Year, which we're going to be celebrating next week on Tuesday. Super looking forward to that. And Chris, you're at home at the moment.
Yeah, and we'll be for a while. I do have plans this year of going to Thailand, so we might be doing a podcast from an island in Thailand, which will be very interesting.
Be happy to see that. Well, people, thank you for watching and listening. You were listening to the Lawcast from MJT Law. It was Christy Santana and Melanie Thorley, and see you next time. See you in 2 weeks.
See ya.
See ya.